Hey guys, today's April 4th. It's Tuesday. I'm going to go over a few things with you and go over today's assignment. Just to begin, we have talked about the poem Harlem by Langston Hughes quite a few times now and how influential this poem was on Lorraine Hansberry when she wrote the play. Just on your own, think about whose dream in this play has been deferred. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's more than one person. Just something to think about as a way to begin today. Our essential question remains the same. Today we're going to review Act 2, Scene 2, and then I'm going to go over today's assignment. Again, our essential question is, how does the play Raisin in the Sun narrate the social, educational, political, and economic climate of the 1950s? And how does the play illustrate the impact this climate had on African Americans' quest for the American dream? Hopefully at this point, you're starting to have an idea of how to answer that question. Little review of Act 2, Scene 2. Walter's depression begins to deepen. In this particular scene, the annoying, gossipy neighbor, she's like one of those TV neighbors, really annoying, comes in, Mrs. Johnson. She stops by with a newspaper to show the younger stories about black families that move into white neighborhoods in Chicago and how they're getting bombed. Very helpful. She makes a big show about how the youngers are moving up in the world and will soon be making newspapers with a headline reading, "Negroes invade Clybourne Park bombed." Kind of gets them a little bit upset. Doesn't seem like she's up to any good. Then Mrs. Arnold, Walter's employer, whom he chauffeurs, calls and tells Ruth that Walter has not been to work in 3 days, and if he doesn't show up tomorrow, he'll be fired. Walter has been so depressed that he just has been driving around, going to bars, sleeping, walking around. Mama feels guilty when she sees the state that he's in. She wonders if maybe she made a mistake. She pulls out the $6,500 she has left of the insurance settlement money and tells Walter to put $1,000 of it in an account for beneath his medical school and then take the rest for himself. And then the scene ends. Travis walks in, sees that his dad is like a different person, asks if his dad is drunk. He says, "I'm never getting drunk again." Walter spends some time talking to Travis about his future and dreaming about the new life Walter is about to create for himself using this money. Today's activity, what I'd like you guys to spend some time working on today is a letter. You're going to be writing a letter. You're going to choose one of the scenarios below that you see. You're going to write a letter from one character to another or from yourself to a character in the play. And be specific about the advice that you're giving. For example, you can do a letter from Mama to Ruth, where you take the role of Mama and try to convince Ruth why she must keep the baby. Hint, remember what Mama said to Walter. If you don't like that option, you could choose number 2, letter from Walter to Mama. You could take the role of Walter and try to convince your mother to give you the money for the liquor store. You could do number 3, letter from Walter to Ruth. Take the role of Walter and apologize to Ruth for leaving. Tell her how much you love her and keep the baby. So those are 3 options that you could choose from. Just a little reminder on format for a letter. A lot of us don't really write letters anymore. People used to do it all the time. People used to handwrite them. Kind of crazy. Just remember that you always put your address on top. You just make up an address. And then you always say "dear" to the person. Skip a line, indent, and then you say what you want to say. And then at the end, you skip a line, and you say "sincerely" or "love" or whatever, comma, and then your name and your signature. So especially don't forget the "dear," person's name, and the closing at the end. Just to give you some more information about each scenario, if you're having trouble getting started with your letter. For the first option, letter from Mama to Ruth. You could take the role of Mama and try to convince Ruth why she must keep the baby. Remember, Mama has learned that Ruth is planning to have an abortion. And now, based on Walter's reaction to learning of Ruth's pregnancy and his leaving the house, Mama is all the more convinced that that is what Ruth is going to do. Ruth doesn't want to talk about it anymore, so Mama sits down and writes a letter to Ruth, trying her very best to convince Ruth why she must not have an abortion and why she must have her baby. Think about Mama's viewpoint and how religious she is. And you could brainstorm on your own, just to give you some more help for scenario number 1. Now, scenario number 2, you need a little more push there. The letter from Walter to Mama. In this particular scenario, you take the role of Walter and try to convince your mother to give you the money for the liquor store and not buy the house. Explain why buying the liquor store would be the best thing for him and the whole family. In this particular letter, Walter writes a letter to Mama trying to persuade her to give him the money for his purpose. And you can brainstorm on your own before you write the letter. The last scenario, letter from Walter to Ruth. Some more information for you if you need it. Take the role of Walter and apologize to Ruth for leaving. Tell her how much you love her and try to convince her to keep the baby. For example, it's a few hours later. Walter has done a lot of thinking since he walked out of the apartment. He now realizes how wrong he was in leaving when he did and in not telling Ruth how much he loves her. He feels so bad that he did not tell her he is happy that she is pregnant and that he looks forward to having another child. He knows how upset she is with him. So he thinks if he writes all these thoughts in a letter, she will read and listen to him. So maybe brainstorm on your own and get some ideas, and you can write if you choose this scenario. All right, and the last scenario is you can choose your own. If you don't like any of those or you want to be more creative, you can write a letter to one of the characters in the play. You yourself, as if you're talking to one of them. Do you have something to get off your chest? Write a letter to one of the characters, either giving them advice or explaining what you think about their actions, and be specific. Be sure to use the scenarios in the story to support what you are saying. And you can brainstorm on your own for that one too. Okay, so follow the guidelines here. Go to the assignments and complete today's letter writing assignment and make sure that you submit it in the Dropbox. If you have any questions, please send me an email and I'll get to it as soon as I can. And that's all I have for you guys today. Have a fantastic day and see you guys soon.